Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Wayfind Marketing Live, where we know that marketing your business is hard, but it doesn't have to be. And so here on this weekly show, we make it our goal and our mission to simplify marketing, demystify it so that it's easier for you to grow your business. And I'm Steve Phipps. I'm the founder and president of Wayfind Marketing. And my co-host is AnnieLaurie Walters, who is a content creator extraordinaire and my sidekick on this show.
Yes, it's so fun to be your sidekick.
Like Batman and Robin.
Love it. Well, I know we've mentioned it before here on our show, but Steve and I, we've known each other since our college days, many moons ago, back in the 90s at old Union University. And, we were thinking back to some of that this week as we were talking about the show, and we were talking about what we wanted to get into today in the show. And I was remembering, Steve, that you were always big on being outdoors. You loved anything outside, biking, running, camping, climbing. And I remember you were telling me a story about rappelling with a roommate once. Why don't you share that with us as we get kicked off here today?
Yeah. So college roommate, for any Unionites who may be tuning in, Michael Scrivener, and lived with him for several years. And he did a lot of rappelling. And so had the opportunity to go with him on multiple occasions outside of Nashville. And the whole reason that you and I were even talking about that whole idea of rappelling is because rappelling is one of those activities that a lot of people don't do. Maybe they're afraid of heights or just scared that they're going to get hurt, because there is risk inherently involved in rappelling. And, as you and I have talked, rappelling is a great picture of what it's like for our customers to do business with us. Mm-hmm. And, for the past few weeks, we've been talking about 3 stages that your customers go through. Mm-hmm. And it's really the stages of building a relationship. Last week, we talked about curiosity, and that's really the stage where people are just trying to answer the question, what do you do? Mm-hmm. That's where the brain's making snap decisions as to whether or not they're going to invest time to figure out more about your product or service, as to whether or not they feel like you can help them. Mm-hmm. This week, we're talking about the second stage, which is called enlightenment. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole stage of building trust. And, Laurie, it's like going rappelling, where you're committing yourself to the rope. You're committing yourself. You're trusting that the person who tied the ropes off, that is taking care of the equipment, that the equipment is good, that they're going to give you instruction, and that they're going to help you get to the bottom safely. And for our customers, it's very much the same thing. They want to know, if they invest time, money, resources into your product or service, are you going to help them? Are you going to get them to the bottom safely? And so today we're going to talk about how to build trust so that they're more likely to do business with you.
That's great. So we've been talking about these phases in terms of what the brain's looking for. And a lot of that's just instinctual, survive and thrive, we talked about last week. What are people's brains looking for when they're in this stage where they're wondering, am I going to trust this rope to get me down the cliff? What are their brains looking for?
One of the things that they're looking for is empathy, and that might strike some unexpectedly, but when you're looking for a product or a service, there's 2 things that you're looking for, and we talk about this in the context of story. So you may have heard us talk before about story brand and using the structure of story to communicate clearly, convincingly, to help people make the best decision. Now, in the case of your product, your service, your brand, you play the role of the guide. The guide is the one who helps the hero or your customer succeed. Now, there are 2 attributes that make a guide successful. And number 1 is empathy. And that is the ability to relate to your customer at an emotional level. The decisions that we make are made at an emotional level fundamentally. The part of the brain that controls emotion is the part of the brain that makes decisions. That's why people talk about making a gut decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the first things is that whole idea of empathy.
Mm-hmm. So what types of things can we be showing or communicating that demonstrate that empathy? How do we show that when we haven't maybe even had a chance to meet the person yet?
Words are absolutely essential. And really a lot of what we try to do is eliminate the wrong words. There could be lots of right words. And so when we're communicating with somebody, and let's assume, to your point, we're not having a face-to-face conversation. And so the question is then, how do we communicate empathy? And we do it through words that help them, that help our customers, our future customers, understand that we understand what they're going through. So for instance, hey, we understand how challenging it is to fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And again, in context of your product or service. So for us, we might say, hey, we understand how overwhelming marketing your business can feel because of it's complex, it's difficult. Mm-hmm. So just that type of phrase, we understand. And there's other ways to do it, but that's a simple way to communicate that you understand what's going on.
Yeah, this idea of empathy and authority working together is really interesting. And one thing that I remember from reading the first Building a Story Brand book that Donald Miller wrote, that we've referenced a couple of times in our shows here, he used several movie examples, but one that always stands out to me is the Hunger Games example. So, you know, Katniss, she's got to get ready, she's got to go. She meets this guy Haymitch, and she's kind of got an impression of him, but she realizes he's been through it. He survived it. And he knows, but he also throughout the movie was sending her exactly what she needed at the exact right time to help her keep going. So it's such a great picture of how a guide in this story, Haymitch, could have that empathy and authority working together in the same way. Like how are some ways you've seen that applied in business?
Well, and so let me give a little bit of an explanation in terms of, because your point of authority. So that's the second part of the role of a guide. And really the question that your customers are asking is, are you trustworthy? If I trust you to help me, are you going to get me to the other side? Are you going to help me overcome the problem that I'm facing? And so in terms of demonstrating that, so empathy is, hey, that means I understand what you're feeling, to your point of Haymitch and Katniss and Hunger Games, which if you haven't seen that trilogy, if you haven't read the books, go do it this weekend. Fantastic story. It's one that Elizabeth and I watch regularly. Mm-hmm. But the idea of authority is that you can actually solve the problem, because there are lots of people that are empathetic, but they can't solve the problem. So they're not a guide. There are lots of people who have the ability to solve the problem, but they don't have any empathy. So that type of person, that type of brand ends up being more of a jerk. Mm-hmm. And so you put the two together. Authority means you can solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways, and we talk about this to our clients regularly, one of the best ways to demonstrate authority is use testimonials. Mm-hmm. Because again, you make the assumption that when somebody comes to your website, make the assumption that when you are having a sales conversation with a prospect, they are skeptical. Mm-hmm. Trust has to be earned. It's not given easily. And the more expensive a product or service, the more risk there is. And therefore, the more trust needs to be built so that, we're building trust and lowering risk. Mm-hmm. And testimonials are a really good way to do that, because now it's not just you saying it, but now it's your customers using their words to describe how you've helped them overcome the problem.
Right. And this connects back to that whole idea of surviving and thriving. So if the brain's looking to survive and thrive, it's looking for some assurance that it's going to work. Like what they're looking for, what they're thinking about doing is going to actually work and help them survive and thrive. So when they see people like them sharing stories about how this product or service has helped them to survive and thrive, then that sort of lays the foundation and continues to build that trust and cement it in the brain's mind, in your mind, that yes, this is something that's going to help me survive and thrive, because I see somebody who's like me, who's been through, I've been through, who's telling me, hey, this worked for me. And that's what's so great about video testimonials too. I think it's great to have, quick little quotes and words, but whenever you can get video of someone talking about your product or service, putting it on your website, that really just takes it to a whole new level.
Absolutely. And I'll make a quick sidebar without chasing a rabbit. Using a video testimonial can be really effective. And you've already mentioned, put it on your website. We have 4 video testimonials on our homepage. It can also be used in advertising. And we've done this with clients using a testimonial videos as retargeting ads. So somebody goes to the website and they leave without doing anything. Well, then they start seeing an ad on Facebook featuring a client testimonial, inviting that person to download a PDF or an infographic, and using that as a way to generate leads. And in fact, there was a service I was looking at a couple of days ago, and now they're doing that same thing. They are showing me ads. I've seen it on Instagram. I've seen it on Facebook of a client testimonial. And that is a really powerful way to build trust, to demonstrate that you have empathy and that you have that expertise, to the authority to help solve your customers' problems.
Yes, yes. And along the lines of authority, this expert, this guide that's going to show the hero the plan, has to have a plan. And so a lot of times, we know our plan. We run a business. We're trying to communicate and market our business. We know what the plan is, but it's like you can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. You might think it's obvious or that it's laid out, but maybe it's not clearly communicated so that the person who's visiting your site has a chance to really understand without having to think about it or read between the lines. Here's the plan. Here's exactly the steps you have to take to do business with us. So explain that more and how we can apply that in this context.
Absolutely. So again, the whole idea, we want to build trust. And one of the ways to build trust is to lay out the path, help people understand what comes next.
Right.
We want to do anything we can. And I may have just frozen up there. We want to lay out a plan that helps people understand what comes next. A big part of building trust is eliminate mystery. I've talked to business owners before that like, well, I don't want to put too much information on my website because I don't want my competitors to get on there and find things out. And, I get that. Right. But at the same time, make sure you put enough information. And one of the simple ways to do that is laying out what's called a process plan. And so I'm gonna jump over to a website here for just a second. Now, this is a marketing coaching group, and that we run for small business owners. And you can see here what we've done is say, hey, take the next step and end your marketing frustration. Steps 1, 2, and 3. We make it very clear. Schedule a call, join a group, win more customers. And there, AnnieLaurie, the funny thing, a lot of what goes into effective marketing is not rocket science. It's being clear. It's establishing, it's just giving clarity. We're eliminating mystery and letting people know here's what's going on, but doing it in a way that they can easily understand.
Mm-hmm. And what goes with clarity is also consistency. So that clarity and consistency, which leads to regular ongoing communication. So the way that we get the opportunity to communicate consistently with our leads and prospects is through giving them a resource and providing something of value that they can use to continue to learn more, be more enlightenment, just move further along in this process. So what are some examples of resources that we can provide?
So one of the things, there's a couple of different things. And the thing that I want to point out is remember that this is a journey. You're going to have, if you think about your customers and who does business with you, think about how long it takes them to make that decision. Now, if you sell a $10 product, that's a short cycle. Now, if you offer a product that's tens of thousands of dollars that requires a 12-month, 24, 36-month commitment, then it's going to be a longer sales cycle. And so that influences the types of resources that you can use to build trust. So when people are in this enlightenment stage, they're gathering information, they're better understanding how you serve them. One way is create a downloadable guide, some sort of a PDF that people can access in exchange for an email address. And what you're doing is you're giving them something that's helpful. And in fact, a resource that I'll mention that's on the Wayfind website, so wayfindmarketing.com, a resource that's there is a PDF that we created, and it's 6 ways to win more customers through your website. Mm-hmm. And so somebody drops into that, they get a series of emails. Again, we're continuing to share information. And this is always with the focus of helping the customer. This is not, yes, we are selling in this, but we're not just making a hard sales pitch. We're communicating information that's helpful. It builds trust, and it's helping them make a better decision. Now, another one could be case studies. Mm-hmm. Case studies can be super helpful. Mm-hmm. Do a webinar. Mm-hmm. Again, there are any number of different ways, infographics. Some industries go a little bit more technical, so they'll do a white paper. Mm-hmm. But there are any number of different resources that can be provided to help generate trust and credibility. But again, take into account how long is the sales cycle, because you might need multiple things, multiple touch points to build that trust and credibility.
And I think it's important too, just to point out, we're not creating a resource just to get someone's email address. It's actually, the resource is an important part of the enlightenment process and helping them through this stage.
Good. I was just going to say, to that point, good marketing is authentic. If you genuinely have a desire to help your customers, then that should carry through in the resources that you're creating. Whereas if somebody's just after a quick sell, that's going to show up.
Mm-hmm. And, it kind of, back to the authority piece of it, we kind of want someone to prove it, like it's one thing for me to land on your website and see that you're really great at gardening and you're going to help me to grow great tomatoes this summer. Yep. But I'm going to need you to prove that before I buy your book. So I'm going to want to read a few, downloadable guides, or maybe watch a few videos on YouTube, mm-hmm. showing me, like, all of that. It enlightens me, but it also builds my respect and my belief in your authority to actually help me do this. And then all those things work together to finally lead you to making the purchase. Yeah, I'm going to buy your book now. There is a process to go through, and each piece is very important. And if you leave a piece out or try to fly over one of those pieces too quickly, then people are probably going to get confused, or they're going to miss an important part of what you're trying to communicate. And then that's when the brain kind of starts to shut down. I know one thing that we talked about, but we wanted to make sure we brought up today was just that idea of how the brain experiences pleasure when it's understanding something. So let's talk about that real quick. Give us the highlight on that. Like what is the brain experiencing when it's understanding and it's tracking, it's getting along, or when like a whole, there's like a plot hole in the story you're trying to communicate, and your lead falls straight through it.
Well, our brains are designed to minimize effort and energy. It's wired to conserve calories. So when it has to figure something out, it means it's burning more calories, which it doesn't like. And so it's always looking for the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. And so when the brain understands something, it actually experiences pleasure. Mm-hmm. And by contrast, when it encounters something that it doesn't understand, that is confusing, then that's going to be, it creates more, it experiences fear and resistance. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of what we're doing is just, we want to do things, we want to communicate, we want to structure things in such a way that our customers' brains, our prospects' brains can just easily understand it. Mm-hmm. Let's take down the barriers. And so let's use things like testimonials. Let's create resources. Let's have content that people can engage with, mm-hmm. so that we're impacting them, and we're giving them what they need during the enlightenment step, which ultimately is going to lead to commitment, which is what we're going to talk about next week. And commitment is where people make the decision. That's when they come back to we come back to the example that we were talking about a little while ago. When we have the rope, I'm going to just toss a quick picture up here. When we have the rope, that we're holding the rope to help someone rappel down. And this is a rope that my wife and I got this last weekend to pull up some stumps. And so this was rated for 300 plus pounds. And we, got to use our Yukon to pull up these gnarly stumps from the ground, which was a lot of fun. But that's ultimately our customers want to know, can I trust you? If I grab hold of the rope, is it going to hold me? Are you going to get me to the bottom safely? And that's when they commit. And we're going to talk about that next week.
That's awesome. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Well, Steve, thanks so much. This has been a great discussion about enlightenment. And is there anything else that we forgot to mention that we need to make sure we say before we end it up?
The main thing I would say is if you have questions, feel free to get in touch with us. If you want to learn more, I mentioned a guide in just a few minutes ago. If you go to wayfindmarketing.com, you will find the free guide. If you go down towards the bottom of the page, there's going to be a place there where you can download that. Well, and apparently I cannot spell. I'm trying to do this on the fly. So for any of our listeners, I just try to put a banner up on the screen. And let me try this again. Download the free guide at wayfindmarketing.com, or you can get in touch with me, 901-300-6898, Steve at wayfindmarketing.com. We want to give you the resources you need so you better understand how to build trust with your customers, with your prospects, to help you win more business. Again, our whole goal, our whole mission is simplify marketing. Let's demystify it so that you can focus on growing your business. And so we will be back next Friday, noon Central, wayfindmarketing.com/live. We're on LinkedIn, streaming live. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook, on my personal page, on the Wayfind page. So find us, like us, subscribe. If you want to get weekly emails from us, I also do a weekly marketing tip. It's a video that I send out every Wednesday. You scroll to the bottom of wayfindmarketing.com. There's a place there you can just drop in, get our weekly email. So again, we want to give you the resources you need. Thanks for dialing in. We'll have a recap of this on the website here early next week. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. Bye.